All right, let's talk about Nightly Neighbors, or The Tale of the Nightly Neighbors. I guess I have to say that at the beginning every time. This is like a freaking Friends or something, where every episode starts with the same thing in the beginning. How does that show go? Like the one where Rachel met whatever or something like that. I think those are the titles, right? Anyway, all right, so this is Betty Ann's story. And when she starts telling it, it plays that music from Night of the Living Dead 2, or Night of the Living Dead, which always reminds me of Halloween 2, when Michael breaks into the house and grabs the knife off the cuff. She screams, ah! And that was my best scream. That was my Mr. and Mrs. Elrod. That was my best at Mrs. Elrod impersonation. It was pathetic. Anyway, the sister comes up and she scares her brother, which she makes him throw his popcorn in the air, and then she takes the bolt out of his hand and just dumps it on his head, and he just sits there and talks to her and runs over the window and looks, and he just keeps wearing the popcorn bowl on his head. That is a kid who does not care. That's great. You know, she eventually starts to put together that they are vampires. They only leave at night. This episode reminds me of a little bit of a mix of Salem's Lot, when the windows open up and they fly in the room. It looks a lot like that scene in the movie, even though that's a dream sequence. It also feels like Fright Night, where the neighbor is possibly a vampire and the kid wants to go investigate it, which of course then reminds me also of The Burbs, which is very, very similar as well. So a lot of little elements going on here from other films. And we find out at the end here that, you know, they get tricked into believing that they're not vampires because they aren't. And they're outside in the sun, and they have this BS story that they're, you know, work for the hospital and that they have to store blood at their house, and they want their son to come over later to play, which you have to invite a vampire into your house, and they agree to it, and we find out that the kid was actually the master the whole time, and that these parents are really just his, you know, little drones, little lackeys. So I like that little spin. I thought that was cool. You don't ever really suspect the child as being the only vampire. I mean, we've seen vampire kids before, Interview with the Vampire, like Kirsten Dunst and all that kind of stuff, but that he's the only vampire and that these are his like slaves, that's actually a really cool spin on it. And it ends, you know, dark. Like, those kids are getting killed later that night. Like, that's how that ends. They don't say it, but that's how that ends. The kids in the episode are murdered by a child vampire. So, yeah, so pretty cool episode. Yeah, I liked it. All right, moving on.